Hello, my dear Aries. I do love a lot of Aries. Listen, the first thing that I see is I see you blowing a whistle. And it's like come to attention kind of whistle, right? It's a military whistle, kind of like, you'd see with the troops, but it's just about calling you to attention. But then the next thing I see, so it's like pay attention. But the next thing I see is you holding yourself like this in a really comforting, almost self-loving way. It's kind of like you could pat yourself like this, And by the way, this is for July 14th or the week of, or whenever you see it and it resonates. And it won't resonate with every Aries. The Aries that I'm reading for, I feel like you're being asked, be in a loving position. In this loving position, you're supporting yourself, but you're paying attention. You're paying attention to where you're feeling resistance in your life. What does resistance feel like? Well, it can feel like you're just suddenly not wanting to do something. It can actually feel like agitation. It can feel as though you need to break free of something. Basically, if you think about it, it's kind of like a structure that has perhaps been previously supportive, contained in a healthy way, in a way that felt positive to you. Now it feels stifling in some way, uncomfortable in some way, creating anxiety in some way. You're being asked to notice that. And at the same time, you're being asked to let go of remorse, to let go of guilt, and notice if within this sense of being stuck, you're feeling a hopelessness. Because if you are feeling a hopelessness, often that's a sign that something from the past is getting triggered and you felt powerless. So often it goes back to childhood. And it's interesting because next to the hopelessness card, you get ideal childhood. So I feel like this, Aries, this is your opportunity to go a little deeper and to look at some of the things that have been perhaps holding you back from expanding beyond how you perceive yourself and how you've been living your life, and how that might be attached to things that you were raised with, character traits that you took on as a way of dealing with your childhood or dealing with events, characters in your childhood. You're being asked, like, okay, it's time to let that go now. There's let go of all of that stuff. Understand that hopelessness is coming ultimately from a sense of feeling powerless. And now, if you were to look at, if you would like to look at where some of these things came from, look at points in your childhood where you felt powerless and stifled, and where you felt resistance, and look at some of the qualities perhaps you developed around that. But beyond that, what it's really saying is, now it's time for you to look at where it is you can embrace this sense of really noticing what you need, noticing where you're feeling stuck, where characteristics, relationships, jobs, habits are creating a sense of restriction for you. And how would you deal with that if you had characteristics developed in childhood that you didn't? Like, if you could go back and look at your childhood and say, if I'd had the ideal childhood, whatever that was, what qualities am I lacking now do I think I would have? And if I choose to apply those things, what might happen? How might it look? You're also being asked to look at how many times do you figure it's up to you to fix yourself in order to change a situation? And how many times have you done that out of a fear that if you weren't the one to change, you weren't the one to fix yourself or fix things, things would fall apart? Okay, so what they're really saying here is, can you really allow yourself to make a priority the idea of you looking at where you have felt less than, where you have felt like you have had to compensate in some way for other people, where you are not being honored, where you are not being respected, where you are not feeling this quality of support support and appreciation, this, from other people around you. This, to me, really is about that sense of there's a real feeling quality of security and confidence, even though it's coming from yourself, even though it's coming from your own arms. If you do this, you really do get a sense of relief, release, being taken care of. And if you're not getting this from other people in your life, it's time to look at that. Or it might be time to look at that. You know, sometimes what we'll do, Aries, is we'll try to fix ourselves in order to accommodate what other people think is important when it's not important to us. When in fact, it might even be something that is not only not important to us, but is contrary to what we think is the best thing. But we'll jolly along with it. We'll go along with it. We'll figure out. You know, we won't pull a mood. We won't do something that is going to be too conflicting to the people around us because we don't want to cause a problem. But you're being asked to really stop, really breathe, really get in touch with what it is you need from an honest, genuine, self-loving place, not from an ego place, but from a heart-centered, I deserve more place. I don't have to be better. I don't have to change myself for somebody. What if I'm just fine the way I am? And what if the people around me, what if it's time for them to change? And what might that look like? So you've got a lot here, Aries. The fact that it's asking you to look back, or it's suggesting that looking back over times when you have felt powerless, maybe you're feeling powerless now, but can you track it back to where it came from? To what kind of characteristics you might have taken on, or characteristics that you didn't develop because of that? And can you turn that around and say, well, just because I didn't experience it or develop it now doesn't mean I can't be that if I choose to. Okay? Aries, I think this is actually a really powerful, a point of power for you, because it's a point of making choices from a different place, from a different perspective, and perhaps expecting more from the people around you differently than you would have expected it before. It's not that you can't be determined to get what you want. This is different. This is coming from a different place. This is coming from a feeling place of self-love, genuine self-love, and self-forgiveness and self-appreciation. And that's what we leave you with today as your spirit message. Take care, Aries.